The Connecticut Huskies are 27-4 heading into the Big East tournament. They'll be in the 7 Eastern time Thursday night quarterfinal game awaiting the winner of Marquette and Xavier. We're joined by the head coach of the Huskies now, Dan Hurley. Dan, what do you make of where your team is at heading into the postseason?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it a lot with this group. I think you're certainly you're pleased with your 27-4. You're pleased with your 31 game performance. I think if you look at the year we've had, we've been ranked as high as two, um, but we've pretty much stayed in the top five the whole year in college and been pretty consistent. And you look at some of the wins above bubble, the strength of record, it's top five in the country. So, we've played to a top five team in college basketball the whole year. Unfortunately for us, we don't have anything to show for it. We were hoping to have a Big East regular season, at least a share of it to show for it. But we didn't get it done. And then obviously coming off of such a jarring loss and such a painful loss, literally coming down to the 31st game and the 20th conference game, and you've fought so hard, and you don't get it. We've obviously got to emotionally and mentally recover quickly, and and get locked in and just understand that overall what we've been able to accomplish to this point, that we're positioned well to no longer reach all of our goals, but to certainly be able to hit on some of them.
That wins above bubble is fourth in the country at plus 8.5. When you think about it, Dan, you've talked about the expectations at UConn, and the expectations are to win hardware. It's to win a championship this week, and then it's to win a national championship in Indianapolis. I know you wouldn't have it any other way, but do you ever have to think to yourself like, okay, I have a 27-4 team that played a very, very difficult non-conference schedule, and then the league is this double round robin where it's different because everybody knows everybody. But the outside noise, one loss at UConn, it feels like equals multiple losses at any other place. Do you have to measure all of that?
Yeah, I do. And I think, you for yourself, for your team, being able to kind of keep things in perspective. I think the thing you sign on for at UConn, if you come and coach or play here, is exactly that. We don't have the benefit of flying under the radar or being the upstart, the underdog program or the underdog. There's not a lot of pressure on us. We're not supposed to win it. It's certainly heavier when you're coaching or playing at the Dukes and the UConns and the Kentuckys. And I think the players and the coaches are under a different level of scrutiny, different level of pressure. But I think we all got to perform under that. It's just it's heavy, and this time of year, I think you want to get your team. For me, not thinking about that. I think we've got to go into New York City and into Selection Sunday. Excited about the opportunity to compete. We're not entitled to advance in any of these tournaments just because we're UConn. So this team has earned like I said, through 31 games. This team's had a great year. We just don't have a championship to show for it yet.
What went wrong over the weekend that you have focused on the last 72 hours with your group that you want to make sure you're doing as much as possible to ensure that it goes right in the postseason? What are those areas?
Yeah, I think that the common denominator in all the losses, well, with Arizona, in that game without Taris and without Braylon, it was rebounding, which I think we've been able to do a better job with that. The St. John's, who's an awesome rebounding team at home, we were able to do the job there. Yeah, and we dominated the glass versus Marquette. So I think the rebounding has been a concern that we've been able to improve, but the turnovers have been crippling and debilitating for the team. You look at what we're shooting from the field. We're shooting slightly under from the field what the 24 team shot, and we shoot overall better from three. But the turnovers have absolutely crushed us. The 16 at Marquette killed us. And the first St. John's game, we turned it over, in a game that we had a chance to win and we lost it. And then at times the on-ball defense, we were soft. We were very soft guarding the ball. If we're able to, tie those things up, and especially the turnovers, John. The turnovers for us are absolute killers. If we can keep our turnovers in single digits, we've got a great chance of winning a lot of games this month.
Want to give you a chance to talk about Saturday and the final moment of that game. You're ejected from the game at Marquette.
Yeah.
From your perspective, now that it's been a few days, what can you say about what happened and then what followed?
Yeah, I mean, I felt, you feel a lot of things. The loss is crushing. I mean, that's kind of the first thing, and it's all it's you walk into the locker room, you realize that you just did something that you should not have done. The first as you're leaving the court, you've realized you've just blown the championship. And then once you get into the locker room by yourself, now you're saying, why couldn't you just walk away and just head towards the handshake and move on from it? But the I would say this, there's a line, that you can't cross, and I'm fortunate enough that I didn't cross it, and make contact with John. John's a great ref. If I had a game with my life on the line, and I'm looking for somebody that's just going to call a fair whistle, an official that's strong and is kind of easy to deal with, because there's a lot of give and take with John. John, John is like the perfect ref to ref one of my games, because he's a strong, strong official. He's a tough guy. And, it's a little bit scary that I put myself in a position where I got that close to making contact with the official. So, like I think I've been a pretty good boy all year for the most part. I did get a tee in the tunnel, earlier in the year. So, which, the league said, or at least the head of officials said, that technical should not have been called. So, I, I don't know. John, I wish that I would say that Saturday night that the media had an opportunity to get the official game report, where they could have said that, where they could have seen that John said, "I made no contact with him." I get angles on TV can look a certain way, but the official that was involved in it said I made no contact with him. I know I didn't. I know I got up close and yelled into the back of John's head, which he didn't deserve. And I was wrong, because there was no foul. There was no foul in the drive with Silas. Silas just didn't finish the play, and we didn't get the offensive rebound. So, but I just wish that there was an official's report that came out after the game, especially when you have controversial things like that, where they could hear the officials say that the coach did not make contact with me. And if you think that referees are covering for me, if you think the Big East is covering for me, I don't think that any of those two parties are covering for Dan Hurley. Especially the officials. I don't think there's many officials that would cover for me based on what I put them through on a nightly basis, with how hard I coach and the pressure I put on them when they ref my games. So, I'm embarrassed by it. Yeah, I felt inclined to reach out for Shaka and his staff and pass along to Ross and Gold my congratulations, and they deserved a normal ending to the game. It's but in the end, this that was a crushing loss, and it was, and I didn't handle it properly, and I got punished for it. I was Obviously, there's been a public backlash, and you put that behind you and you get ready for New York City.
Let's flip the page to New York City.
Yeah.
How do you define the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden?
I mean, it's when you've gone deep into the tournament, like we've been able to do here, you realize that like it's second weekend plus is the only thing that surpasses the Big East tournament. I mean, Elite Eight, Sweet 16 in a big spot, but Big East tournament, the electricity, the juice in the building. I mean, there's again outside of second weekend or beyond, there's nothing like Big East tournament, and it's all you watched as a kid. It's like your memories growing up with Pearl, Pearl Washington versus Georgetown, St. John's. I remember like the Chris Mullen, Walter Berry, Willie Glass from Atlantic City. I mean, those were your memories of college basketball. So to be a part of it is, it's just a thrill. I mean, it's like I think if we had another regular season game to play on Wednesday, I'd be really afraid for my team. But coming off that type of loss on the road to end the regular season. But heading to NYC and it's 60 degrees out and the snow's melting and we're heading for New York, we'll be ready to go.
My last question to you is this. Do you have you are a man of many different superstitions through
Mm.
the years. I'm
Mhm.
just curious when you are in New York, it's starting to get warm out. Do you have anything that when like I get to the Big East tournament, I have to do, or I make sure of it in the Manhattan hotel? I don't know if there's anything on there. Obviously, the Hurley family is right there with you, quite literally on the court. But I don't
Yeah.
know if there's anything that comes to mind this week.
John, it's such a problem for me, really, the packing. It's really like the biggest issue is, so like do you go eat in the same restaurant that you ate at, before we beat Illinois, before we beat Florida, but then we lost to St. John's? And so like what do you do? Do you go back
Right.
to that same restaurant because you won more than you lost, but your last time you went to that restaurant the night before the game, you lost. So that's like, obviously, I don't know who's driving our bus right now. I guess I'm going to find out. Hopefully, it's not the same bus driver that we had for the St. John's loss at MSG, because we did have a different bus driver for the St. John's game than we did in those other Jimmy V's and Illinois games. So that's a factor. And then the packing, like the clothes. What did I wear versus this team the last time we beat them, the last time we lost, trying to coordinate the sport coat, the dress shirt, the pants, the shoes, the underwear, the socks, the belt. Packing is problematic because there's so many considerations. It's it's exhausting. It really is exhausting.
I'm exhausted, listener. I'll let you pack. I'll let you get ready. Hop on that bus. We'll see you in Manhattan. Thanks for the time, Dan.
All right, brother.